Sobel Films here with a special report. Open letter to the RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki. Okay, RCMP National Headquarters, 73 Lincoln Drive, Ottawa, Ontario. Dated October 21st, 2021. Dear Commissioner Brenda Lucki, we respectfully submit this open letter to express our most sincere concerns and resolute stand against the forced, coercive medical intervention of Canadians and against the undue discrimination experienced by those exercising their lawful right to bodily autonomy. We are not against vaccinations, but as law enforcement officers, we cannot, in good conscience, willingly participate in enforcing mandates that we believe go against the best interests of the people we protect. Okay. Executive summary. I'm not gonna I'm pretty good at reading, you know. I should but this is big, guys. This is big because you get ready to drop the hammer, and this needs to go viral, man. Because the cops, the RCMP, are standing up for us. Okay. Executive summary. As Canadians' constitutionally protected freedoms precede the government and may only be temporarily limited if the majority of evidence justifies such infringements as reasonable, provable, and guided by law. I might make some spelling mistakes because the thing is, guys, I haven't did an open letter readout in a long time. I don't normally do this, but I'm doing it because this is so substantial. Guided by presented with all the available evidence in court, we firmly believe the government implemented mandates would not hold up under scrutiny. As experienced investigators, we look past the information this provided and focus on how the information is presented. A proper investigation should be conducted as obstructively as possible and follow the principle that it is better to have questions that cannot be answered than have answers that cannot be questioned. A complete investigation must include full disclosure of all facts of the case, even contradictory evidence. Why, when is there little to no tolerance for free and open debate on this matter? Many credible medical and scientific experts are being censored accordingly. We rightly have concern spell check, about the science we are being coerced to follow. I haven't done a readout, guys, in a while, so but I figure this is so important that I should read it aloud. As representatives of our community within the RCMP's representatives of the RCMP in our communities, we have never witnessed such division in our country. This sense of us versus them will further fueled by having a police force consisting only of the vaccinated people while serving communities consisting of unvaccinated. Guys, talking codes here because I want to put this on YouTube. I might have to revamp this, but because I can actually spit this off like just as good as We Are a Change Guy can, right? Like, I'm good at reading stuff aloud. As law enforcement officers already face higher levels of stress, mental illness due to the nature of our work, these have been compounded considerably by mandates that we believe that are deeply unethical, threatening our livelihoods and dividing our society. It's what it is. Federal employees, I put words in what I read sometimes because what is being done to mitigate the stress. More, however, the assurances are we given that injections will not cause short or long-term side effects. What steps will be taken to ensure members are compensated for adverse side effects? Well, you don't get compensation. The shit's loaded with all kinds of like poison stuff that you might not notice it right away, but it will fuck you, right? So, my language. Police officers are expected to preserve the peace, uphold the law, and defend the public interest. Strongly believe that forced and coerced medical treatments undermine all three and thus contradict our duties and responsibilities to Canadians. We remain loyal to the Charter and Bill of Rights and ask to send investigators to collect statements from medical professionals and other reliable witnesses who allege they have been silenced, putting lives at risk. Allow us to make this information publicly available to all so the public can scrutinize it and achieve informed consent. Okay, about us. This is really good. Mounties for Freedom, guys. About us. This letter was created the collective thought, beliefs, opinions of effectively serving police officers of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP, from across the country. We have wealth of experience which includes but is not limited to general duty, federal serious and organized crime, school liaison, Prime Minister Protection Detail, emergency response, media relations, combined special enforcement unit. We come from various ranks, levels of experience, communities, cultural backgrounds, religious beliefs, and vaccination statuses. Together, we are the Mounties for Freedom. We are individual police officers who unite in the belief that citizens, including federal employees, should not be forced and coerced into taking medical interventions. Which is not a medical intervention, guys. It is an attack. It is a bodily attack, a biological attack. Okay, that's what it is. The evidence is below. They've actually gotten a lot of, In August 2021, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced federal public servants need to be fully vaccinated, and that for those without medical exemptions who choose not to be vaccinated there will be consequences. Since the statement, many federal employees have been told they will be sent home without pay for refusing to receive contested medical treatment. Okay, we have an belief that people should not be forced or coerced into receiving current C-19 treatments. It should be voluntary. We stand and unite against the forced, coerced medical intervention of Canadians, against the discrimination faced by those have exercised their rights to bodily autonomy. We believe in democracy, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Bill of Rights. This is not about whether people should be vaccinated. That is a personal choice. Our primary duty as peace officers in the RCMP is to preservation of peace. Is the preservation of peace, sorry. We never witnessed the level of division in our country as we currently see from the C-19 pandemic. It is our responsibility now more than ever to make all efforts at preserving the peace in our country. The Charter of Rights Freedoms, the Charter protects fundamental rights and freedoms essential to keeping Canada a free and democratic society. The Canadian Bill of Rights, as the Canadian nation, is founded upon principles that acknowledge dignity and worth of human persons and position of the family and society of free men and free institutions. It continues to say, affirming also that men institutions remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect, moral, spiritual values, the rule of law. We believe federal, provincial governments have failed to uphold the Charter of Bill of Rights and Constitutions, and we are witnessing the erosion of our democracy in Canada. As you know, the Charter does not guarantee absolute freedom. If the government is going to limit freedoms, it must establish the limitations are reasonable given all available facts. The government must adhere to process to prove their actions are appropriate, called the Oakes test. We firmly believe if presented with available evidence in court, the government implemented mandates would not pass the Oakes test. And time of writing this letter, the Charter Section 33 notwithstanding clause has not been invoked for this pandemic. Requiring mandatory C-19 treatment options is a slippery slope and allows the government to overstep their authority unchecked. It infringes the fundamental belief in our society that individuals have the right freedoms to choose the choice of whether they receive medical treatment has always been the individual right in Canada. The Canadian National Report on Immunization in 1996 stated the immunization is not mandatory in Canada. It cannot be made mandatory because of the Canadian Constitution. Section 2 of the Charter of Rights guarantees the fundamental freedoms through the freedom of consistence. Okay, that's a hard one for me. Subsection A, the freedom of thought, belief, opinion, expression. Subsection, without individual having the freedom to choose, we would not have a democratic society. Through the Nuremberg Code is not law. Yes, it is. Okay, listen. The Nuremberg Code is law. Okay, what? They've made a miscalculation here. Through the Nuremberg Code is not law. No, it is. It was put into place in order to protect against this Nazi experimental type of shit. Okay, it's a law. It stands today. It's international law against experimentation. Okay, but because they're widely wording this, so whatever. Right? I'm just going to say that it is law. Okay, but what they're saying here, it's not law. No, it's law. Okay, it is internationally accepted and falls in line with the spirit of the Charter and Bill of Rights. A key component of the Nuremberg Code is that participants in a medical experiment need to participate voluntarily without form or force or coercion. We've obtained documentation from several Canadian doctors who have explained the current C19 treatment options in Canada being referred to as vaccines. We are recently authorized as new drugs, despite the absence of long-term data. According to these accepted Canadian doctors, these treatment options did not meet the criteria of true vaccines until very recently, when the definition of vaccine was hold on a second, I lost you. Was changed. Without long-term data, these vaccines are still experimental. We believe that the act of removing the rights and freedoms of citizens who refuse to participate in a specific C19 treatment options is a form of coercion. Yes, it is. The criminal code contains our country's criminal offenses, explains that a person that commits an assault by intentionally applying force to someone else without the person's consent. The criminal code further explains that constant consent is not obtained from the person who submits, neglects, or resists on grounds of authority being exercised over them. How then can someone give proper consent to a C19 treatment injection when doing so under the threat of losing their job, freedoms, or livelihood? Canadian courts have already ruled that the medical treatment without proper informed consent is an assault. Yes, it is. It's not just that. It's attempted murder. It's murder. Conspiracy to commit mass murder. They've already committed mass murder by what's going on there, because they've got evidence of what's going on inside under the microscope. As law enforcement officers, we cannot, in good conscience, willingly participate in enforcing mandates that violate the laws of our country and breach the rights and freedoms of its people we protect. Least we forget, each year on November 11th, it's coming up, Remembrance Day, we remember those who sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. From Founders Fields to Juno Beach, many Canadians bled and died fighting tyrannical nations. We need to remember past events and prevent the repetition of history's greatest mistakes. I might make some spelling mistakes here. On September 30th on the 30th of September, I read things backwards because I'm dyslexic, but we have the opportunity to reflect on such times during the first National Day for Truth, Reconciliation under the direction of the Government of Canada. RCMP members were once issued lawful orders to remove children from their homes and transport them to residential schools. Canada still is recovering from this impact of those decisions and actions. The RCMP has yet to regain the trust of some citizens, obviously in the Aboriginal community. There was a time when scientists believed humans were divided into racial heresies and that persons' intelligence levels and characteristics were determined by race. These beliefs were not heavily contested and were widely accepted as scientific fact. Prolongly was also widely accepted as being legitimate scientific study. These are not examples of science being wrong, but of people conducting poor investigations or misunderstanding their findings. These are just two of the several historical examples of widely accepted scientific truths, which became ridiculed practices. we look back at those times of radical heresy and wonder how something so wrong could have so widely accepted as truth, have been so widely accepted as truth. It is just heard many people conceptualize. Okay, I can't pronounce that one. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna skip that. How RCMP officers could have blindly followed lawful orders, devastated so many lives, yet we find ourselves in dangerous waters when the RCMP officers are being forced under coercion, duress, to participate in actions they believe go against the spirit of Canadian laws. We find ironic in our organization that preaches the honor and respect of Canadian values, the sacrifice of their veterans, would support actions against contradict the values of our veterans fought to uphold and enforce, of identification and checkpoints, was early step in what would become the Holocaust. Canadian citizens, various backgrounds, are being segregated and punished for choosing not to disclose a personal medical decision. We cannot think of any ironic and cruel way for our governments to pay homage to the sacrifices Canadians have made worldwide to protect the individual freedoms than by participating in processes that take those freedoms away. Today, instead of having a vision of scientific truth during this pandemic, we have visions that conduct one another. How can some professionals be so certain in their interpretation of science is correct when others give evidence to the contrary? History has already demonstrated we get these things wrong even when our scientists agree. We acknowledge there is a spectrum filled with beliefs relating to this pandemic. For the sake of simplicity, we will refer to two men's school through the common narrative. Those who believe the current C-19 treatment injecting, I misspelled that deliberately, our way through the pandemic, and those who concerns with the C-19 treatment injections. It is important to note we are not discussing anti-vaccine. In this letter, we are discussing people with various vaccine status who pose questions about the current C-19 treatment options forced upon them. Okay, the science. RCMP members are not scientists nor healthcare professionals. Our profession is law enforcement. We do not pretend to be experts in the medical scientific fields, but we are experienced and professional investigators. We look at facts. Proper investigations follow simple practices that remain consistent across most fields. These practices include, but not or limited to, asking the right questions, following evidence, being aware how bases many effects results and allowing the evidence to point to the conclusion, not allowing the conclusion to point to the evidence. Importantly, a proper investigation should be conducted as objectively as possible. Follow the principle that is better to have questions that cannot be answered than to have answers that cannot be questioned. complete investigation must include the full disclosure of all facts of the case, even contradictory evidence. The C-19 pandemic has caused several scientists and medical professionals to provide us with information described as scientific, or facts. The problem with many of these statements is that provided information often contradicts another piece of scientific fact that equally qualified professionals had produced. This makes it near impossible for the average person to know what to believe and what not to believe. As experienced investigators, we look past what information is provided and focus on how information is presented. This allows us some insight into credibility of the information. Some professionals make definitive statements such as it's safe, it's effective, and or this is a way, giving little to no explanation of how they've reached their conclusion. When the information provided challenged or questioned, the response often indicates the answer is something that cannot be questioned. The C to the D to the C recently changed its definition on immunity of vaccine, allowing the current C-19 treatment and vaccine and to force and jabs to fit the definition. This example of actions taken when you allow conclusion to point to your evidence. Other qualified professionals have provided alternative pieces of information during the pandemic. It is not what their results were, but how they arrived at their result that we believe in. These professionals have all been able to articulate their findings quite well and quick admit the remaining questions they cannot answer. These professionals from Canada and abroad have experienced warnings and concerns with the current C-19 treatment options condoned by the government. Of these concerns suggests a higher than average number of moderate to severe effects from the C-19 vaccine compared with traditional vaccine. Others have stated current C-19 treatment options provided to be less effective initially believed. We attached several documents as a appendix to this letter concerning I guess it would be an appendix. Information we believe raises reasonable concerns with current C-19 vaccine mandates across our country. We encourage to review the documents and work. Each document refers thoroughly, though we understand we have provided a lot of material which will take time and resources to read. We believe the fact that there is so much evidence opposing the mandatory rollout of the C-19 treatment is reason enough to take our concerns seriously. There have also been a lot of scientific papers suggesting natural immunity is better form of protection than what the C-19 vaccine can give. Why is antibody testing not being discussed as a potential option for the RCMP members? Here is a list of documents attached to this letter These documents are a sample of what is available and were written by the people or groups of scientific and medical professionals in the fields directly related to the C19 pandemic. We defer to their expertise. And you guys can see all this here. Solid appendix. We're going on a 30-minute, but it's so, I could get into it more. But yeah, it's a 30-minute readout. I just read something for 30 minutes for you guys here. And that's the first time I've actually read an official document on air. Yeah, I made some mistakes. But tell me how my readout was. It must have been pretty good. I have to say, because they're getting ready to put the cuffs on, guys. Yeah! Click! Yeah, you're going to fucking jail, you fucking scumbag pieces of shit. For fucking going after the fucking kids and all this stuff, right? But I'm going to post this on YouTube. If it gets a strike, I don't give a fuck. I'm putting it out here. It's a 30 minutes. This is one of the biggest ones I've done yet, guys. Sobo Films. Like, share, and subscribe. Make this fucking document viral. I'm going to post a link at the bottom in the description. We'll just see how long this lasts.